So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Liz Weil. So you are a journalist gone memoir,
yes.
Which is a weird transition because when you're a journalist, you can write about a topic. But when you're a memoirist, the topic is you. So I wonder if when you were approaching this, how you decided to make it a book about your marriage versus a book about marriage more generally.
I felt like, for me at least, I didn't want to approach marriage generally. There's this line from The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. It's about how to tell a true war story, but I think it's kind of true about marriage too.
Not to equate war and marriage.
Not to equate war and marriage, but he says, you know, a true war story doesn't generalize. And I feel in a way, in order to write about marriage, you have to write about the particulars. I mean, not if you're a historian, but if you want to write about the experience of it, you have to get inside.
Right, but so then once you're in memoir land, then you're in confession land.
Yes.
And it's a requirement. I mean, if you're going to ask for, as somebody who's written a few of these myself, if you're going to ask for readers' time, you have to tell them something more than what you would say at a cocktail party, for instance, more than maybe you've told your brother or your sister.
Yes, a lot more.
So, yeah. So you told some big doozies. I mean, there was and hard things, a terminated pregnancy, anorexia, a visit to a psych ward, your husband's depression. These are big, hard things to talk about out loud and in print. But I felt when I was writing my stuff that it's even sometimes harder to admit the smaller things, like that you felt that your dad didn't really understand you when you were growing up, or that you didn't really groove on the fact that your brother was an investment banker, or that you don't like to French kiss.
Yes.
So I wondered if you could talk about some of the things that were the hardest to put in print, and some things maybe that you decided not to put in print that you don't mind sharing with 100 new friends.
Well, okay, let me start by answering it this way. I went into it, and I had this mantra for myself, which was a very good mantra for writing, and we'll see how it goes now that the book is out in the world. But I would just tell myself when I would sit down to write, just be totally honest, and everything will be okay. And I would tell myself this every day. And I think as a writer, that's a really good place to be, in that, like you were saying, your reader, they're giving you something. They're giving you their time, you know, maybe they've even bought your book, you know, that they've given you a gift, and you need to honor that.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or you'll be, you know, checking the book over the side and not enjoying it. So I felt like I needed to be honest for it to work. And it's, as you probably know, at least for me as a writer, it's not that hard to be totally honest when you're alone in a room.
That's startlingly easy.
It is so easy, right? It's not hard. There you are. And it feels a lot like being a teenager writing in your diary in a way, particularly the first draft, where you feel like, well, what I need to do right now is take away all the filters and just be emotionally honest, and I can worry about making it pretty or smart or logical or
sensitive.
Any of that stuff later. So I don't think that there were things while I was writing that I felt so much like I can't write this in a first draft. Dan, my husband,
who you're about to learn a whole lot about,
felt that in the early drafts that I could have shared more of my own foibles, that I was having an easier time writing about everybody else's foibles than my own. And so there was a little coaxing. You know, he read endless drafts, so there's a little coaxing in the, well, honey, you're not so perfect.
Right, right. It sort of reminds me of listening to Elizabeth Gilbert tells this hilarious story that when the movie was coming out, they had cast Javier Bardem as her love interest. And she kept, her actual husband now, kept hearing her on the phone with the producer saying, I don't know, I just don't really see it as Javier Bardem. I mean, he's really good looking. You know, the point about this guy was that he wasn't good looking. I didn't fall in love with him for those reasons. I fell in love with him for these deep, important reasons. And then she hung up, and her husband finally looked at her and said, you didn't say anything when they cast Julia Roberts. And that's really what you owe the reader most. It's not to tell other people's stuff, the salacious details, or even
Right.
just, but really it's yours. I mean, you have to show the reader that you're gonna
put yourself out there.
Right.
So like the French kissing thing, people were horrified. So
I'm a little horrified right now, I gotta tell you. I mean, I'm not afraid to say.
horrified. People, you know, my neighbors especially, it was sort of people at that level where they're not your really close friends, but they're the people you bump into at school or, you know, at the grocery store, where you don't really, you have these very surface casual conversations all the time. And I noticed people were just looking at me like, oh my God, what am I going to say to her? But at the same time, I also have to say, I heard an amazing number of confessions from other people who don't like to French kiss.
Really?
Yes.
So what are you putting the percentages at adult women who do not like to French kiss?
I'm going to put it
based
at
anecdotally.
30.
30%? That's outrageous.
We can take a poll after.
Well, I don't know. If maybe we could close our eyes and you could do like the thumbs up, thumbs down if you don't like French kissing. And there was nothing that you were tempted to put in that you chose not to? That was just too hard?
Sure, but I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay, just checking. Just checking.